how does it take 20 minutes to get from one side of Lincoln to the other? It's not that big of a city.
Yet it is.
I know, it's because we have no freeway. But anyway, guess what?
What?
We're almost done.
Almost done with it. It's almost summer.
Almost summer.
I'm dressed for summer. That's it.
I mean, look, I am dressed for summer as well. I'm just not as flashy. Okay? That's
Okay.
This isn't the aesthetic that I go for because I can't pull it off. I don't have the personality.
Okay. So what are your summer plans?
Oh, so many summer. Well, I mean, so first off,
Yes.
time acknowledgement.
Timing now.
As I'm thinking about, like, what are your summer plans? And also, hi. Welcome to Not That Kind of Doctor. I'm Nick Hughesby. I'm an associate professor here at UNL.
And I'm Guy Trainin, and I'm a professor here at UNL.
And so time acknowledgement, because summer is upon us, which is, it's kind of like, have you ever seen Tiny Toon Adventures, How I Spent My Summer Vacation?
No.
So there's this great musical number in the beginning where they're like, it's finally summertime. And that's like what goes in my head every time. Sorry, causing problems. Every time like May hits, like summer is upon us. I'm going to get so much done. It's going to be great. But there's the reality that I am a 9-month contract employee with the institution, with UNL, until I teach, right?
Yeah.
I teach in the summer, so that kind of shifts the way that I think about my timing during the summer or my time during the summer. But if you are a 9-month contract employee and you have no other extenuating contracts or teaching during the summer that compensates you for your time, your summer's your summer.
Yeah.
Like, really, you should not be expected. You should not be expected. I shouldn't even hedge. You should not be expected to spend any uncompensated time outside of your contract.
Yeah. And this is a little bit hard for us because many of our graduate students are teachers, and the time of the year that they have a little bit more time to get ahead with their plans is summer. So they often try and push for reasonable reasons for themselves to meet, to get advice, to have some kind of interaction. And I think if we think about this, and we know this is going to happen, we have some, at least I've developed over time, methodologies to deal with that, including have the conversation early about during the summer, most faculty aren't here. If you are not going to be, if you're off contract during that time, saying, I'm not going to be here, so if you want anything done, we have to prep it in May before we all leave. So you know what you're supposed to do, and when you have the time, you can go ahead, but there's not going to be many committee meetings, defenses, all of those things. If you do want to do it and you run out of time or there's something special, sometimes we make that choice. But in general, your time is your time. If you're off contract, please take the time off, enjoy it, and do whatever it is that you want to do during that time.
Yes, because there's this kind of unspoken, like, oh, you'll do all your writing during the summer. That's an essential part of my job. Like, that's part of my job responsibilities. That's what I'm supposed to be doing. So if I can't get that accomplished in the 9 months for which I have a contract, that's a systemic failure right there. Like, if that's literally part of my job and I can't get that done during the time with which I'm contracted, that's a larger problem, right? And that's a systemic problem that individuals shouldn't be owning.
Yeah, and well, sometimes you should be, because you need to audit your time and see, if I didn't have time for it, what else did I do with my time? Because I'm pretty sure that both graduate students and faculty are filling their time. They're doing something during those very busy 9 months. And so if you could not find the time to write, a few things are happening. One is your approach to writing is probably wrong, because you're thinking there's going to be this magical time when everything comes together.
Doesn't
It never
happen.
works that way. all the research we have about writing
I think we have
says
a
it
podcast
doesn't
on this,
work,
don't
and we do. So go back and look for it. And so this is a way for us to often to convince ourselves that everything is fine when it's not, because we're saying, oh, it's going to happen in the summer. If you have to rely on the summer and you're off contract in the summer, then something in your time plan is off. And that's really important to say. But if you're like us and you're in May, it's too late to fix last year, but start thinking about how is it going to be different next year, because otherwise you're going to make the same, you're going to repeat that mistake.
Yeah, so I think that time acknowledgement, I'm not saying that don't work on things connected to your research, don't work on things connected to your teaching, but it's up to you how and what you take on, right? So like when I'm thinking about summer, one of the things I mentioned in our Unstuck podcast, or like, as I like to call it, Nick loses his poop emoji podcast. Like I've been able to start thinking through and planning for a lot of the work I've been putting off across the semester because I taught overload stupidly. Students are great. Love you, Lit Block. Love you, Children's Lit. Love you, Science of Reading doc students. You made my semester, but it was a lot of work. So here's my process for how I'm thinking about summer.
Yeah.
Because you know me, I love a good table. I love a good table.
As well you should.
As well I should. But I always start by just mind dumping everything that I want to get done, regardless of whether it's work, house, dogs, people I want to see, my garden, like what is it that I want to get done in the summer? Yeah. And I just make this huge long list. And then I start coding it. Like, here's one version, right there. And where
That's all you have for summer?
There's multiple pages.
Okay.
This is just the most recent page. I haven't categorized this yet, but I will. That's the next step. Don't get ahead of me. Yeah. Wow.
Okay. I'm sorry.
He's not. He's not. But yeah. So, like, I mind dump every single thing. So, like, the fact that I need my rec room painted. I need to finish that. I started it in November. Didn't have a chance to finish it yet.
Yeah.
That needs to get done.
Yeah.
I have all of these light fixtures all around my house that need to get swapped out. They're all purchased. Haven't done it yet. Haven't had time. Like, literally haven't had time to be home for the electrician. Hashtag single life. Dogs can't let them in. Right? So, like, it's just everything that I can possibly think of. And then I start coding. And normally with a highlighter, I go through and I highlight like, oh, these are things around the house. These are like my personal crafty item projects. Like I have a quilt that I'd love to finish this summer. I've got some goals for Lit Block because I have a grad student who's going to come and learn about Lit Block and teach in Lit Block with me next semester. So I feel like there's some underlying structures that I want to build. I've got some research projects that I need to get materials ready for. And so I start coding and laying out and categorizing, my writing. What kinds of writing do I want to do this summer? What kinds of data analysis do I want to spend some time with? What kinds of reading do I want to do as I'm taking over the LEd program coordinator position? Like, I've got books on leading more effective meetings and giving and receiving feedback and creating like second brains. How do you manage so much information? What are ways that people can think about that? What is it that I want to do personally with my summer, right? Like that I haven't had time for, and then thinking through like, what are the teaching things that I need to do? So once I have those kind of separated, then I keep thinking, there are 24 hours in a day. I'd like at some point to get 8 hours of sleep again.
Okay.
Hasn't happened all semester. But maybe this summer, hope springs eternal.
All right. Yeah. So what you're saying is you need to let that schedule breathe. The idea is not to cram as much as possible. And
Well, so here's
Yeah.
here's where I'm talking about. So here's where I start getting into the nitty gritty. So once I've got all my kind of things that I want to get done categorized, I can then start prioritizing based upon the fact that I have 24 hours in the day. 8 of those I hope to be sleeping,
yeah.
which leaves me with 16 hours, waking hours. In a week, that's about 112 hours
Okay.
that I have at my disposal, right? I don't want those all to be working hours, but
hope not.
it gives me an idea of like how much time I actually have. Like time is not infinite. We have a limited amount of it.
Okay.
You following?
Yeah.
Yeah?
So far, so good.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Are we delving into the Elon Musk time is the ultimate currency?
I mean, I don't know.
It
that-
is.
I don't know that I love the capitalistic
Yeah.
perspective. Like that veers into the like, what do you do with your side hustle?
No,
And I
that's
don't
not where I'm
like,
going
ooh,
with that.
no, but like things we know from
Yeah.
research, for instance, like people who have 4 hours, about 4 hours of control over their time are the happiest. People who have less than 2 hours of time that's under their control are the least happy,
Yeah.
right? So like in the summer when I have all this unstructured time before I start teaching, I like to lay out kind of what I want to be doing. And if I think about the fact that there's literally what did I just say? 11 weeks of summer
Yeah.
that we have before before we're officially back on contract. I've got 112 hours every week. That's it.
Yeah. It sounds like a lot, though. For somebody who hasn't thought through that, 112 sounds like quite a bit.
So to me, like, I'm like, oh my gosh, that's all I have. Because think about like my list of things that I want to get done is multiple pages, right? So like my eyes are, I feel like a kid at Christmas where I'm like,
Yeah, there's going to be all this time.
well, and like, Santa's gonna bring me all these gifts. I'm gonna get all this stuff done.
Do we need
'Cause
to
I
talk
have-
about Santa?
I mean, look, I realize the audience, but Santa was a thing.
I am sure it was. I was just checking if we're okay now with Santa.
I mean, Santa when I was 5.
Yes.
Right?
Oh, okay. Okay.
Santa when I was 6, that was the year I collected all the mousetraps for a year because he freaked me out.
I do remember that.
Like the inadvertent like stress of like stranger danger. I don't think my teachers realized how that impacted my poor parents and their like Santa scheme. Anyway,
Back to summer.
back to strategizing, right? So like I'm not going to be able to get everything done.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Like I've got all of these plans, all these things that I would like to get done. And it's when I start thinking about time as finite.
Mm-hmm.
And this I feel is one of the things that went awry for me this last semester is I stopped thinking about time as finite because we often like to think about apportionments as percentages.
Yeah.
And percentages are only valuable when we're thinking about them in relationship to the whole.
Yeah. To what is the whole?
And
is
we
the whole
never-
10 hours a day or 8 hours a day
Right.
or 20 hours?
And that doesn't really, it's always, oh, that's 30% of your apportionment. Of what apportion? Like, talk to me about like concrete
Yeah. How many hours?
numbers.
Yeah.
Right.
How many hours a week? Yeah.
And so I'm going back to kind of I'm going to kind of nickel and dime my time
Mm-hmm.
again because I failed to do that. And look where I ended up.
So for
not
me, I work somewhat similarly. My summers are usually not my own. I teach in the summer, and I usually have grants that pay for my time in the summer. So I feel like I need to put my time into those grants, into the writing that's connected to those grants. So it's an opportunity to do, but that's because my time is compensated. But I use the same methodology. That is, I lay out tasks. I'm a lot more selective. So I've learned to be a lot less ambitious in summer and give my summer a lot of air to just be in the garden, to spend time with my kids, to do nothing, to do a puzzle, whatever it is that kind of mellows me. That's the opportunity, because I usually, when I teach in the summer, I teach in short increments, short workshop, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, but not more. And that makes those times really, really busy and everything else a lot less. And I just let it breathe. I also have a switch. My switch is the 4th of July. I have started thinking about the 4th of July as the end of summer. That is, at the 4th of July, any task that I haven't already started is probably not going to get done this summer. So if I've already started it, I'll finish it by the time summer is over. But if there's something I haven't even started, unless it's a vacation or travel somewhere, which obviously I will do, but if it's something, a paper or something like that, and I haven't even started it, I'm not going to start it anymore. I'm just going to try and finish everything that's in process, and whatever happens already in fall. Well, as part of my apportionment, going back to that idea.
Yeah, and that feels pretty similar to what I do. The next step that I do after I've like laid out, here's the amount of time that I have, because I'm not working this entire time. I'm not working the entire summer.
It's
when I'm
not a full-time
teaching.
job, 8 hours a day.
But if I'm thinking about, every day I can spend about 4 hours working on stuff related to my job, whether that's research or teaching. If I do 4 hours a day, what can I actually get done? And I start breaking it down week 1, week 2, week 3. I'm literally looking at my planner on Google Drive. I'll link a blank planner in the program notes and the video description, where I'm like setting kind of targets for, look, if you really do have 16 to 20 hours this week, here's what I anticipate you should be able to get done. So that by the time, like July 4th is when my class starts. And so really any deep work like you needs to be done by the time children's literature starts, because that class is intense. And so planning it out gives me a chance to make sure that I'm not setting myself up for failure, that I'm actually setting some reasonable goals and may actually be able to like achieve a good majority of them, right? Like my grad school self would have been like, I'm going to get all this stuff done and would not have gone through that process of sifting stuff out. And that usually leads to better time management for me, better outcomes for me, in terms of, living my life, feeling like I'm not failing completely at everything, just, failing regularly.
Occasionally.
Just instead of 13 failures a day, maybe just 2.
So let me take you back. So we talked about what we do as faculty. What do you think about graduate students? What should graduate students think about when they're doing summer and they may be taking a class, just like we teach a class? They may be taking a class, they may be teaching a class. How do you think about their time?
So I think about their time in kind of the same way, right? Like you've got, as a graduate student, your summers are really times to be, are there things that you wanted to read in your field that you haven't? Are there things that you want to revisit over the course of the last year's worth of coursework? Like, my advisor always encouraged me to think about summertime as like synthesis. Right. Because you finally kind of have this break, and in the just day to day fall spring semester kind of work, and that might be the first opportunity that you have to think about the connections between the coursework that you've had and identifying where are the gaps in terms of what it is that you want to do, what questions that you want to answer, and how you want to answer them.
Yeah.
So that's really how I think about like grad summer as an opportunity to, if you're taking a class, great. Normally they're a little bit shorter, much more intense. You still have that like, let me pull these threads together. How is this all coming together? What do I need to do next? As you prep for the next semester coming up, but also taking an opportunity to like recharge, right? Which was the nice thing about the synthesis idea was, oh, this is all stuff I've already read, so I don't really have to do much more new reading. I might have to revisit, look at my notes, et cetera, et cetera. But in terms of like stitching it all together, it's kind of a meditative.
And that meditative, so I do everything backwards, or I learn post fact. And so I took all of my classes, including summers, kind of in a row. My master's and my doctoral degree in about 2 years of 4 quarters, full on all the time. Well, that worked for me, but when you don't take the summer, there are repercussions. And the repercussion is I then needed to take a year, basically almost a full year, to synthesize so I can get to the dissertation phase. There was just too much. And so think about it this way. You either take the summers to do the synthesis, or you will need to take a time at one point or another, because your committee will tell you you are not ready to take your comprehensive exam, or you are not ready to present to us about what you want to do in your dissertation because you have not synthesized. And so you're all over the place. One way or another, it's going to happen. So if you have the opportunity to do it in the summer, do it in the summer. And that way, you're starting the next year with some synthesis already done, and being able to build on that, instead of what happened to me was I took all of the courses and then I had to take all of the courses and put them back together in a meaningful way. And that really was a complicated task at that point because I didn't build as much along the way. And so I think that's important. The one thing that I would suggest, especially if you don't come with a lot of experience doing writing, is if there is a writing retreat of any kind for a short amount of time, that is something that I always advise doing, because it's an opportunity to sit with other writers, learn from their process, do your own process. You can use it to do some of your synthesis. You can do this just to practice and to set yourself up for an easier lift-off the following year. Yes. The other thing I think about graduate student is if you are approaching your last year, this is your best time to organize your materials. Look at our previous shows about going on the market and preparing your materials. This is probably one of the best times because you're not stressed by a semester. You can do it slowly. You can make sure you have everything. And then as you're getting closer to the end of your program, you already have all your materials to be able to send as ads go out at the beginning of fall into early winter. But you're already set most of what you want to create. You need to still craft the specifics, but you can have the 2 or 3 versions that you want to send out more or less finished.
Great. And I think the big thing for me within all of that is, so in summer you have kind of this unstructured time, right? Because the just way that the university works and functions shifts and changes. And so one thing, once you have an idea of what it is you want to accomplish, think through and about how you need to organize your time in order to make those things happen. So I tend to start with, in my calendar, I have a calendar that's my ideal summer week. And I lay out within that calendar what I would like my week to look like in terms of, oh, here I'm working on teaching stuff. Here I'm working on research stuff. Oh, here I'm out in the garden. Here I'm taking a walk. Here I'm going to the gym. Here I am cleaning my kitchen, right? Like laying out and kind of accounting for, I have all this stuff that I want to do. When am I actually going to do it? And what does that look like week to week to week? And then when I start scheduling things, when I start oh, let's go for dinner, yada, 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 then I know where I have some deviations
Yeah.
in my ideal week, but I don't tend to leave my calendar clear.
Yeah.
I tend to make sure that I have reserved blocks of time in order to get those kinds of things done so that I know that I can actually, again, accomplish this stuff.
So for me, because most of my work is happening in teams, and you're working with a graduate student on some of the things that you're planning for next year, but because I work on teams, the way I check in, at least to the work, things related to work, not to home and all of that, is I schedule sometimes just check-ins, 15 minutes, and I stick to that 15 minutes, 5 minutes on, hi, how are you? How's summer going? And then 10 minutes, what did we accomplish? What's our next task? And sometimes I just schedule writing time with people, and we sit together and we write. And then I'm done. The advantage of that setup is it's in my calendar, so it doesn't need to be on the back of my mind. When am I going to get to this? And that feeling of guilty about not doing this. There are times, this is what's designated for that. And when we're done, we're done. I'm not piling on to that 3 more hours of work. We sit together for an hour and a half. We get wherever we get on the text, and until next time.
Yeah, no, and that's. I mean, I think we're talking essentially
very
the
similar.
same thing, right? Like I tend to build my really heavy stuff into the morning. We tend to be most productive in those hours. We tend to have less resistance to productivity in those first few hours of the morning. We're not as tired, et cetera, maybe. I don't know. And then the rest of my day is a little bit more loose until I start teaching children's literature, and then my ideal week changes, right? Because I have to be responsive to students and feedbacking, and it's an online class, so there's just lots of stuff to do there. But I think in order to avoid disappointment, as summer winds down, like, oh, there's all this stuff I didn't get done, you gotta make a plan to get it done.
And I would add to that 2 things. Make a plan. Be realistic about this plan. So don't push, as we talked about this, don't push everything you didn't get done through the year and say, I'm going to push it forward, because this pile will grow larger with this methodology.
This is where the 112 hours is
Comes
really,
back.
really important.
What's reasonable? And then if you don't accomplish everything that you've promised yourself that you were going to do, be ready to let it go. At least on our schedule at the beginning of August, because you've got a couple of weeks. This is our schedule. I know different places, different countries. It's a little bit, it can be earlier, it can be later. But 2-3 weeks before the beginning of the year, this is where you're at. Let go of everything else, because otherwise you're just dragging that feeling of failure into a semester. This is no way to start a semester.
And I feel like you and I have sometimes had these conversations about, like, when you focus in on the fact that you have 112 hours a week, right? Like, are you micromanaging your time? But without that, how do you know what time you have to actually get stuff done in?
Yeah.
Like, it's a finite resource, and how you feel in August is going to be directly correlated with how you spend those resources during those summer months, right? So, like, there's a really good book, Time Management for Mortals, that talks about the fact that time is not finite. And once we stop treating it as finite
or infinite,
thank you. Once we stop treating it as infinite, right, then it does 2 things. It allows us to plan better, and it allows that time to have more meaning, more value. And so if we're thinking about ways to make our summers valuable, not just in terms of the work that we do, but also our personal projects, our personal passions, our what we enjoy, once we start thinking about we're thoughtfully using that time or thoughtfully not using that time. Like, oh,
Yeah.
this is my 2 hours to do whatever I want. Right?
Yeah.
Like that becomes more meaningful,
Mm-hmm.
which is super nice.
Yeah.
Right? So
Absolutely.
that's where I'm at.
All right.
That's where I'm at. I'm currently like trying to figure out.
So summer is upon us.
Summer is upon us.
Plan for it, but be reasonable.
Yes, because again, your time is finite. What are your high priority projects? Like, not everything from my master list of stuff I want to get done is going to get done this summer.
Yeah.
I have 112 hours a week, and I'm not using all those to work. So there's some stuff I had to let go of.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, it'd be really nice to do this, but I'm not going to have the time. I have to let go of that. It stays on a list,
Mm-hmm.
but it's not my
Absolutely.
summer list. See, I can be pragmatic at times. I can
Yeah.
be reasonable.
Yeah.
I can be reasonable.
Especially when you're not taking an overload.
I mean, we're still in it, but we're almost done. It's so close. It's so close. But yeah, I think for me personally, prioritizing that list, just getting everything out that you want to get done, prioritizing that list based
Mhm.
upon the amount of time that you have, and then building in actionable blocks, block scheduling that out. What is your ideal week during this unstructured time? And sticking with it as best as you can.
And allowing yourself to
And
replan
Right. And one more tip before
before we're done.
we're done. Like, so I have my priorities, right? Like I've identified the things that I absolutely have to get done, and I've built in time plus about 20% just in case stuff goes over. And then I have my medium level. Like, it would be nice if this got done, but it doesn't have to get done. So if I find myself with, I don't know, a 2-hour block where I'm like, I'm bored, I can't read, I don't want to listen to another podcast.
Mm-hmm.
Unless it's
Unless
this
it's
one,
yeah,
because
exactly.
this one is super witty, super smart. Then I might look at one of those like short-term,
Mhm.
medium importance tasks and knock that out of the park.
Yeah.
Just in case. Just in case.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know? But yeah, I think I'm feeling cautiously optimistic about summer.
All right.
Cautiously optimistic. We'll see how it goes. We'll see how it goes in August. So
Yeah, we'll be back in August
yeah,
for
'cause
series
this
2.
is for season 2.
Yeah.
Crazy that we've been doing this for an academic year.
Yeah.
How have you put up with me?
Well, it's been hard at times,
I am a jerk.
but you're not that kind of doctor.
I'm not that kind of doctor.
Mm.
Neither am I, so that's okay.
I mean, that's okay. I did hear again
Mm-hmm.
this semester
Yeah.
that I have resting bee voice. Can I say that on YouTube?
I don't know.
I don't know.
You just did
Or
that.
Spotify. So that's been interesting. So I've been thinking, as I've thought about that comment, I've been thinking about, oh, poor guy's been listening to that.
This is your podcast voice.
This is
So-
it's not my,
This
this is my podcast voice, as opposed to like, this is my ASMR voice. Maybe that's a new episode that will start a new series, ASMR Doctoral Graduate School. Fun things. I don't know, probably not.
Probably not, but
I need more caffeine.
all right.
But so yeah, I think that wraps up season 1. If
Yeah.
you have things that you want us to tackle for season 2,
Let us know.
Not That Kind of Doctor, podcast planning, I've got like 3 hours allocated to this somewhere in the next 11 weeks. So sound off in the comments, say hi. And we'll see you in August or September, somewhere around there.
Mm-hmm.
We haven't quite worked out that timeline either.
Probably
It's a-
beginning of September.
It's a sub item on that
Yes.
checklist. Like, once I get all the sub items done, I can check off the whole thing. It's very satisfying.
All right.
Very satisfying. So, thanks for a great season.
Yeah.
This has been fun.
And thank you, Dan, for
Oh yeah,
doing all the work
Dan.
behind the camera.
Dan is amazing. whenever I mess up on something like drop my microphone, he comes and saves me. So we appreciate you, Dan. You can't see him, but he's there. He's a stand-up guy. He's also not that kind of doctor. All right, friends. Plan for your summers. We will see you in the fall.